This is Joseph. I was sold into Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders. Now I am a slave to Potiphar, Pharaoh's chief steward. Thanks to God's good grace, everything I did for Potiphar turned out great, so he put me in charge of his household and the other servants. Then things turned south. My master's wife started making passes at me, which I naturally rebuffed. One day when we were alone, she came on strong, inviting me into her bed. When I started to leave, she grabbed my cloak, but I got away. Afterwards, she told a bunch of the servants and my master that I had assaulted her. So now I'm sitting here in prison. This is Joseph again. After I was put in prison, through God's grace, I found favor with the chief jailer. So he put me in charge of the other prisoners. After some time, two of Pharaoh's top officials, his chief cupbearer and his chief baker, angered him, and they wound up here in prison, and I was assigned to them. One morning I looked at them, and they both looked perturbed. I asked what was wrong, and they said they both had dreams last night, but there was no one here to interpret them. I said, "Interpretations come from God, so tell me your dreams." The chief cupbearer said, "In my dream I saw a vine with 3 branches in front of me. The branches were barely budded when their blossoms came out, and then the blossoms ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I pressed the juice out into the cup and placed it into Pharaoh's hand." I said, "This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will single you out and restore you to your post. You will be handing Pharaoh his cup as you formerly did as his cupbearer. Only think of me when all is well with you, and please do me the great favor of mentioning to me to Pharaoh to get me out of this place. The truth is that I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and I haven't done anything wrong here to cause me to be put in this dungeon." Then the chief baker said, "I had a dream too. In it I had 3 baskets of bread on my head. In them were all kinds of bakery products for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the baskets on my head." I said, "The 3 baskets are 3 days. Pharaoh will single you out and impale you upon a stake, and the birds will be eating your flesh." 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, the cupbearer was restored to his post, and the baker was impaled, just as I predicted. I'm still waiting to hear if I will be released from here. It's been 2 years since the cupbearer promised to speak up for me with Pharaoh. He finally came through. It seems Pharaoh had 2 dreams that no one could interpret. Pharaoh's telling me his dreams now. "In my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when up from the Nile came 7 cows, fat and well-formed. They grazed on reed grass. Behind them came 7 other cows, scrawny, ill-formed, and gaunt. Never had I seen such bad specimens as these in all of Egypt. The gaunt, bad cows ate up the 7 fat cows, but when they had consumed them, no one could tell the difference, as they looked just as bad as before. Then I woke up. In another dream, I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, shriveled and thin, and scorched by the east wind. And the 7 thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I have spoken to the magicians, but they can't explain it to me." I said, "Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has made known to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years, the same in each dream. The 7 thin bad cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 thin ears scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine." 7 years of great abundance are now coming in throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will rise after them. Then all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. When the famine has exhausted the land, no trace of abundance will be found because the famine will be so severe. That Pharaoh had the dream twice means that God has confirmed it, and God will soon bring it about. Let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint overseers for the land and organize it during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food in the good years, gathering the grain under Pharaoh's authority for food for the cities, and they should guard it. This food will serve as a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine, so the land of Egypt will not perish in the famine. This is Joseph. A lot has happened since we last talked. After I interpreted Pharaoh's dreams and advised him to prepare for the coming famine, he decided to put me in charge of all of Egypt, answering only to him. He gave me his signet ring for authority and dressed me in fancy new clothes. He put a gold chain around my neck. Then he gave the daughter of the priest Heliopolis to me in marriage. Her name is Asenath. She has given me 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. For the next 7 years, I spent my time storing and organizing the grain surplus for all of Egypt. Then the 7 bad years came. The people were hungry, and they cried out to Pharaoh. He said, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." When the famine became widespread, I opened up the storage in each of the cities and rationed out the grain to the people. The famine is so widespread now that the whole world is coming to me to buy grain. This is Judah. There is famine everywhere. Our father Jacob said he had heard that there was grain for sale in Egypt. He asked us to all go down to Egypt, buy some for us so we could stay alive. He said Benjamin couldn't go as he was Rebekah's only remaining son. We are here in Egypt now. We're going to meet with the governor. He's the Pharaoh's right-hand man in charge of grain distribution. We met the governor today. Things got off to a rough start. He accused us of being spies for a foreign power. We said, "We are 12 brothers, son of a certain man in Canaan, but the youngest is home with our father, and the other is no more." The governor said, "It is just as I said, you are spies. Here is how I will test you. I swear by the life of Pharaoh, you will not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. So send one of you back to get your brother, while the rest of you stay here under arrest." He locked us up for 3 days. Now we're out. He said he was a God-fearing man, so he said, "Let one of your brothers stay here under arrest, while the rest of you go back with grain for your starving families. But you must bring back your youngest brother." We agreed to this, but we said to ourselves, "We are being punished because of what we did to our brother." Reuben said, "Didn't I tell you not to harm him? But you would not listen, and now comes the reckoning for his blood." We're loading up our donkeys with the sacks of grain and heading back to Canaan. When we got back home, we told our father Jacob everything that had happened. When we emptied our grain sacks, our bags of money were in them. We were scared at that. Father didn't want to let Benjamin go to Egypt with us. Reuben said that Jacob could kill Reuben's 2 sons if anything happened to Benjamin. Jacob still refused. The famine has gotten worse, and the grain is almost gone. I said I would take personal responsibility for the safety of Benjamin. Jacob finally agreed. He also said to put samples of the land's best products in our baggage as gifts to the governor. This included balm, honey, resin, pistachios, and almonds. He said we should take double the money in case we had to pay back the money we found in our sacks. This is Joseph. My brothers just returned from their second trip here. They have Benjamin with them. They still don't know who I really am. I ordered my steward to bring them to my house. Evidently, they were concerned about the money bags I had secretly put in their sacks the last time they were here. My steward told them to calm down. He told them God must have put the money in their sacks. He also brought out their brother Simeon, who I had kept here as a hostage. I showed up at the house about noon. They bowed down to me just like the sheaves of wheat in my dream. Then they presented to me the gifts from their home country. I asked them how their father was doing. They said he was still alive and doing well. When I saw Benjamin, I almost broke down. I hurried out to my private room. After I finished crying, I washed my face and went back out. I told my steward, "Serve the meal." We all ate and drank and had a good time. After this, I commanded my steward to fill the men's bags with as much food as they could hold and to put each man's money in the mouth of their bag. Then I told him to put my silver goblet into the mouth of the youngest one's bag. At daybreak, all my brothers and their donkeys took off. After a short while, I told my steward to go after them, stop them, and say, "Why did you repay good with evil? Why did you steal my master's silver goblet? It is the one from which my master drinks, and which he uses for divination. What you did was wrong." This is Judah. We had left the governor's palace about a half an hour when his steward caught up with us in a dither. He accused us of stealing his master's silver goblet. We argued it was clear we were honest men, as we had brought back the money that had been left in our bags before, as well as our younger brother. Then the Egyptians started searching our bags. They came to Benjamin's last, and there was the silver goblet. Well, we are back at the governor's house again, and he is reading us the riot act. He said, "How could you think you could get away with taking the goblet? You know I can know what happened by divination." I said, "What can we say, my lord? God has uncovered our guilt. We are all to be your slaves." He said, "Far be it from me to make you slaves. Only the one who had the goblet will become my slave. The rest of you can return to your father." I said, "I beg you, my lord, let your servant appeal to my lord, for you are equal to Pharaoh. If the boy is not with us when we return to my father, he will die of a broken heart. Besides, I have guaranteed his safety. Let me stay in his place." Then the governor said in a loud voice, "Have everybody withdraw from me." After the Egyptians left, he started crying. He said, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" We were totally shocked. No one said a word. He said, "Come closer to me. I am your brother Joseph, who you sold into Egypt. It was for the sake of saving lives that God sent me here ahead of you. The famine has been here for 2 years now, and it will last 5 more years. During that time, there will be no crops grown." This is Judah. When Pharaoh found out we were Joseph's brothers, he told him to load us up with all the best products that Egypt produced and head back to Canaan to get our father. When we told Father we had found Joseph, he didn't believe us at first, but when he saw all the stuff we brought back from Egypt, he changed his mind. He said, "Enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I must go see him before I die." To make a long story short, we all went back to Egypt. There was over 60 of us. Pharaoh settled us in the land of Goshen, east of the Nile Delta. By this time, Jacob was a very old man. He asked Joseph to swear he would not bury him in Egypt, but in the cave of his ancestors. When Joseph heard he was ailing, he came to visit him with his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Jacob said, "Who are these?" Joseph said, "These are my sons." Jacob went to bless them. He put his right hand on Ephraim the younger and his left hand on Manasseh. When Joseph said, "Manasseh is the older," Jacob said, "I know, son, but the younger will surpass the older and become a multitude of nations." Then Jacob said, "I'm about to die, but God will be with you and restore you to the land of your ancestors." After that, Jacob called all his sons and gave his last testament. Then he said, "Bury me with my ancestors in the cave that lies in the field of Ephron the Hittite." Then Jacob breathed his last. Then Jacob's sons did as he requested. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of Mamre. Then they returned to Egypt. Now Joseph's brothers were fearful. They thought Joseph might take revenge on them now their father was dead. However, when they begged forgiveness, Joseph said, "Do not fear. Can I take the place of God? Even though you meant harm to me, God meant it for the good, to achieve the survival of many people, including you." Joseph lived many years. He was embalmed and laid to rest in Egypt